Hey Divi Nation, welcome to a brand new Divi use case live stream where each week we show you how to add new design and functionality to your Divi websites. And today in this tutorial, this live stream, I'll be showing you how to create circular elements in Divi. Using some simple steps, I'm going to show you how you can change any module, section, or row into a circular shape. And I'll also walk you through how to align content within those circular elements and make them responsive as well. Don't forget to check the video description for more information on this tutorial. And let's go ahead and get started. So first off, I just want to make sure my stream is coming in loud and clear, hopefully not too loud, and you can all hear me. Feel free to say hello. And of course, I will try to answer any questions you have during this live stream today. Welcome, everyone. All right, so looks like we are doing this live stream on a different day today, but hopefully it's not too inconvenient for you guys. Hopefully you can jump in and join us. As you can see on the screen here, as you're getting logged in here and starting to chat with each other, I just wanted to introduce you to what we're going to be doing, kind of giving you a sneak peek of what we're going to be doing today. On my screen right now, I have the blog post that goes along with this tutorial that went out yesterday, so feel free to visit that for more information if you need as we go along or even after our live stream. And it is a helpful guide on designing circular elements in Divi. And the little sneak peek of what we're looking for, this is basically a simple template that we're going to build just to show you some basic steps on how to create a circular element and align content. As you can see, the content in this example is aligned nice and vertically centered in the circular element here. This is a module, but of course you can apply this circular shape to any module, row, or entire section, and I'll show you that as well. And I'm going to actually show you a few examples. This is an example of changing a section, an entire section, into a circular element on the actual header section of a pre-made layout. And also creating some circular blurbs, which I know are a pretty popular item whenever we're talking about circular elements. So I'll show you how to do that as well. All right, so let's jump in and get started. What you'll need for this tutorial is basically the Divi builder. That's all you really need. We're going to be creating some designs from scratch. So once you get a new page loaded, make sure to build on the front end if you want to follow along with the way I'm doing it here. And also, at some point, we're going to be importing a pre-made layout, the Farmer layout pack, and I'll show you how to do that when we get there. But other than that, this is all you really need. All right, loud and clear. Thanks, Chris, from Scotland. I've always wanted to go to Scotland. I bet it's beautiful. Thanks, Juan. Hello from Mexico. And looking forward to going to Mexico, actually, this year. So excited about that. Rylan, hi from Norway. And Gustavo, hello. So we're all getting nice and acquainted there. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started. And so I have my blank page up and running. I want to go ahead and get a one column row here just for our example here. We're going to add a call to action module. So the call to action module just has some default text in there, which we'll just leave for now. And what I'm going to do is move this over. And by default, the row will span, have a max width of 1080 pixels. And so there's really three main steps that you need to do, possibly four. But three main steps that take place in order to make a circular element. The first step would be to make sure the height and the width of your element is equal in value, or it has equal height and width. And so whatever that may be, basically we're going to need to make the element a perfect square before we round it off and make it a nice perfect circle. And so that's the first step. And so the second step would be to add a border radius around it. Once we have it nice and squared out, we'll add a border radius, which makes it circular on all four corners. And then we're going to align whatever content that we have within our circular element using some custom sizing and padding, or even the flex property, which will vertically align it automatically for you. So that's what we're going to be looking at right now. So let's get to the first step, which is to give it an equal height and width. So with a recent update to the Divi builder, we now have complete control over our height and width of any element. So that's nice. So we're going to go to the sizing options here, and I'm actually going to give it this one a width of, let's see, what do I want to give it? Let's go with, we'll start with a VW length unit. I'll tell you more about that in a bit, but let's go ahead and make it, just for this example, 30 VW. All right, so 30 VW. I could easily make this not 30 pixels, something like 300 pixels as well. But I'm using the VW length unit because the VW stands for viewport width. If you're not familiar with it, viewport width means it's relative to the width of your browser window. And so it's not really relative to any parent element like a percentage would be. So it makes it a lot easier sometimes to use that to make it responsive. So let's do, that's 300. Let's do 30 VW, all right? And then let's go to our height here and give it the same value as my width. So they're both 30 VW in height and width. So that's our perfect square. That's the first step. Second step would be to come down here to our border options. And this is where we'll add our rounded corners. Rounded corners, if you're familiar with CSS, this is basically your border radius. So I'm going to give it a 50%. Now that's basically the standard value you want to add to make a circular element. Is anything above 50% would make it nice and rounded, the correct curvature, if you will, around the whole element. So that's what you want to add there. Really simple. We already have our circle there. So now the next step would be to align our content. And this is kind of the point in which it kind of takes some maneuvering to get it looking just right sometimes. And because it is a circular element and not a box, you're going to be limited on the content more so than you would be if it was like a square, because you have more room. So keep that in mind when you're making circular elements. But all this content here should be fine for this example. So I'm going to come down here and let's go to go back up. Now, there's kind of two parts to this of making the content look good in a circular element. And the first one is you need to maybe resize if it's text, you need to make sure the size of your text will look good on all browser widths or devices. And you'll need to make sure the padding or the alignment is such that you want it, looking consistent throughout as well. As you can see, the content's way too far up. We'll need to bring that down. And the title, sometimes it's useful to add a relative length unit here, like a VW or an EM, or not necessarily EM, but a VW length unit to the title, if anything, so that it spans equally with your height and width of your circular element. So just to give you an example of that, I could give my title something like, let's see, it's my H2 there. So I can come down to my title size, And let's say I give it like something like 4 VW. All right, that's probably too big. Let's take it down to something like 2 or 3 even. And I'll just show you what happens. I'm gonna change it to 2. So this will respond to the width of my viewport there. And I do it just to the title because if you do it to the body text, it'll make it too small on mobile. So I try to keep the body text. I don't want to go below 14 pixels. 16 pixel body text size is pretty standard. So you want to stay around that range so people can actually read it. So once you get the size however you want, then the next part would be to align it. Now, the alignment of an element, or excuse me, content within a circular element can be handled a few different ways. You can, of course, use padding or margin to get your content looking right. And since we're using a VW length, height, and width, we can use the same for our padding or margin. I'm just going to add some padding here. And let's say I add, like 10 VW or something. And that gets it pretty close to center, which looks nice. And I may want to add some left and right padding as well, which I'll just use a smaller unit there of 3 VW on the left and right. And just to kind of sneak peek of what that would look like on tablet, let's just kind of shrink it down a little bit. So you can see that it kind of grew very small on tablet and even more so on phone. That's because the VW length unit is only 30. If it's almost equal to, you can think about percentage of the entire width of the screen. So it makes sense to, for example, it may look pretty good on desktop, but maybe on tablet we need to increase it to something like 50 VW. Oh, excuse me, that's my padding, sorry. Let's go back up to my size here. So let's just change the whole thing to 50. Sorry, let's go to tablet, excuse me. All right, so on my tablet, I'm gonna change it to 50 VW. And of course it doesn't look right because I also have to match it with my height. So whatever you change on the tablet width, on the height, you have to, or in the width, you have to equalize that same dimension on the height as well. So 50 VW. So that looks better on tablet. And of course, let's go to phone. It's probably a little too small. In fact, you can even give it something like 80 VW on phone for the height and width. And there you go. So now let's get back to the padding. So my spacing padding, here we go. So that looks good, but on tablet, I may want to increase my padding, my top padding a bit to line it up. And then on phone, I want to increase it even more. All right, you see my title is probably too small. And so maybe the best thing to do there is just for a phone, for your title size. Let's go back up to title size here. And for phone, it's probably a good idea to just set it as a pixel length unit anyway. So let's do something like 30 pixels for phone. And then there you go. So let's just check out what that looks like. And I'm going to exit Visual Builder. And I'm just going to scroll down so you can see how that responds. You can see the title actually shrinking along with the height and width of my circular element there. And of course, when I get to tablet, it's going to grow to fit it more evenly, and then again on phone. So there you go. That's a kind of a basic circular element that would be responsive. And I'm gonna of course you can use a pixel, and I'll show you that in 1 second what that would do. All right, so feel free to ask any questions. This one, yes, Khalid, I am recording this video. This will be uploaded to the actual blog post, so you can visit it there later on after we finish the live stream. So yes, it will be recorded. All right. Let's get back to it. If you're just joining us, I do want to welcome you to this week's Divi use case live stream, where each week we show you how to add new design and functionality to your Divi websites. And in this tutorial, I am actually showing you how to create circular elements within Divi. And using some simple steps, you'll be able to give any module, row, or section a circular shape and also make it responsive as well. For more information, don't forget to check the video description for the blog post that goes along with this use case. And if you don't have the Divi theme yet, I've included a link to our product page so you can check that out as well. All right, let's get back to it. Just before we go on to kind of putting into action on an actual pre-made layout, I do want to show you a couple of things, teach you, if you don't already know, a few things about these length units. For example, you may think of using, if you want to make a circular element responsive, you may want to try out, like a percentage length unit. For example, if adding 50% height or something and 50% width to the circular element actually would not work. And that's because the 50% height is the problem. The percentage doesn't work on height as you might think, but just because of the way that Divi's built in a lot of other themes out there, and the way their websites are built, they don't really have a fixed height setting. It's kind of set to this height auto. So all the parent elements of every element in Divi per se is actually set to height auto. So if you put anything within that parent percentage height, it's going to be basically percentage of 50%, for example, would be 50% of auto, which is really nothing. So it's not going to work. It's just going to not register anything. So it's not really a good idea to use percentage heights to get the height and width that you want. And that's why I suggested the VW for responsive design on the circular element. Although you can use pixels to do the same thing, you just have to remember that with pixels, this is a absolute length unit, so meaning it's going to stay in place. If you give it, for example, a 500 pixel height and a 500 pixel width, it will stay 500 pixels as you scroll down, no matter what the parent height and width are. For example, no matter if the column shrinks or not, it will not respond to that. It's going to stay 500 pixels high and 500 pixels wide, no matter what. So you'll just need to make sure and take that into account as your browser goes to a smaller width, and so make those adjustments on different devices. So just to give you an example of how that would work, let's say let's go ahead and change the sizing here. Let's give it a 500 pixel. Actually, let's make it 400 pixels width, and give it, and of course, equal height and width. So 400 pixel height. All right, there's my circle shape. I've already have my border radius done. My alignment's off because I need to adjust it to a smaller one here. So let's just fix that. Let's just give it like a 30 pixels top, or let's increase that a bit to 80 pixels. All right. Of course, for the padding on the left and right, I like to use percentage or VW length units because that's kind of some really valuable space there that you want to make sure. And you want to make sure that it shrinks because when you make the circle small on mobile, you don't want to have too much padding. So if I gave it like a 30 pixel padding, that would be too much padding on mobile. So I like to make sure that it's a percentage, you know, or a VW. And a 3VW, of course, is based on the width of the browser, but I could easily do the 3 or I don't know 4%, and that will be based on the parent element, which of course is the row, which is basically right now it's at 1080 pixels. So that's 4% of 1080 pixels. That would be your left and right margin. I don't know if this is helpful or if it's giving you too much information, but I thought I would mention it just to kind of explain the thought process of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's good. Let's go ahead and save that out. And let's see what that looks like on tablet. So if I go to tablet, should look fine on tablet as well. You can see my, since I'm using pixels, I don't really need to have that title as a VW length unit. So let's go ahead and change that. Let's see. Let's change it to 30 pixels. All right. There you go. So on desktop, tablet, phone. All right. So yeah. So even on smaller phones though, just to give you an example, if I'm going to save this out, kind of this, you just need to be careful on whatever the last or the smallest circle that you have. If it's in a pixel length unit, you'll need to make sure that it is small enough for actually the smallest phone view. So probably you're safe anything under 320 pixels wide. That would take care of kind of your portrait phone view, so the smallest one out there. So you're safe, I think, if you stay under 320. Ours is about 400. So just to kind of give you an example of what that would look like. So if I shrink my browser, actually my browser is not even going to go that small. So let me open it up, inspect it here, just to kind of show you what happens. So I'm going to scroll down and watch what happens. Oh, I didn't refresh my page. That's my problem. All right, let's save it out. Make sure my sizing's correct. I didn't change it on tablet. So it needs to be 400 pixels on desktop. Let's change it also to tablet. That's my mistake. Sorry about that. Make sure they're all 400 pixels. And the same for height. So again, I have the same height and width for all my devices there of 400 pixels. All right, so let's save that out. Let's go back, refresh. All right, so now when I shrink it, you'll see that the circle will actually stay 400 pixels, even though I may have, this is like close to 320 right here. So if that is the smallest phone, it's not going to work. So I have to make sure and resize that for my phone display. All right. And my padding is actually needs to be updated. You can see it's moving around because it still has the VW for the tablet and phone. So we'll need to fix that. But that's the basic understanding of using a pixel. You'll just need to make sure and adjust it on all devices as you see. And actually that's kind of really helpful because if you use pixels to size those circular elements, you kind of lock in that design, even though it's not really maybe as smooth of a transition on browsers widths, but it does kind of lock in the design. You know what it's going to look like. So there's benefits to both. All right, so let's go back to my desktop view here. All right, so before we go on to putting it into practice, I do want to give you some options, another option, I should say, for aligning this content. And let's go ahead and go back to, let's see. I'm going to align this content. Um, and to do that, I need to get rid of the padding. So let's see, my size for this one, I think is still 400 pixels or something. I want to increase that just so you can see it better in our example. Just make it 500 for now. All right, let's make it 500 for all. In fact, let's just, there you go, 500, 500. Okay. All right, so, and I want to take out my padding because I'm going to align it using the flex property. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to bring this all back to its defaults here. So we have no padding. And to do that, it's just a simple CSS snippet of code that you add to the main element. And it's something we've done it on other tutorials as well. And basically it changes our content into kind of like a very responsive table. And you can tell it to, align vertically or horizontally, but that's basically what display flex does. But since, and so it's basically going to change our module within our text element within our module into a flex box. And then what we can do is tell it to align vertically. So I'm going to put align items center. And there you go. And that will make sure and align that content vertically, or make it vertically centered within the element. And it's actually not, if you really want to be particular about it, it's really not perfectly centered. And that's because within this specific module, there's a default padding underneath. We're using the call to action module. There's a default padding underneath this body text here because it's there because whenever you want to add a button, you need that there. But if you want to take that out, you just go under this promo description here and set the padding bottom to 0 pixels. That's not a 0. There you go. And it will take it out. I don't know if you saw it, but it did move a little bit. So now it's kind of perfectly centered within there. There is actually a post on our blog on how to align, vertically align elements in Divi. So you want to check that out if you have some time. All right, let's go back. All right, so that's basically it. We can, let's bring in a pre-made layout. But before I do that, I just want to welcome you if you are just joining us to our weekly Divi use case live stream. Welcome. And today I'm showing you how to build or create some responsive circular elements in Divi. And walk through some simple steps. And with those steps, you can change any module, row, or section into a circular shape. And I'm showing you how to align those that content within each circular shape. For more information, check out the blog, the video description for the blog post for this tutorial, and go ahead and check out our product page. I've included a link in there. If you haven't gotten a chance to get the Divi theme, go ahead and check it out. Let's get back to it. And I do want to just bring in our pre-made layout just to show you how easy it is to do this on a live pre-made layout or a design. So I'll go to my pre-made layouts and I'm going to bring in the farmer layout pack. I'm going to choose the landing page. We won't use all these elements, but click use this layout. All right, so with that layout added to our page, I'm actually going to start with this first top section, the header section. We're going to make the entire section circular. And just to give you an example of how that might work. Of course, we're going to be using the 3 basic steps of making sure the section has the equal height and width, and then given it that border radius or the rounded corners of 50% on all 4 corners, and then align the content within the circular element, in this case, a section. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to open up my section settings, and let's go ahead and give it our size. It's pretty big. I am going to use a VW length unit, but I'm also going to use a pixel max width and a pixel max height. That'll make sure that it doesn't get too large or whatever, so it stays kind of within the viewable area or above the fold, if you will. And so hopefully that'll make sense why I'm doing that. But the width, for example, is 70 VW. And I'm going to make sure and give it the same on tablet. And then on phone, I'm actually going to make it a little bigger, 80 VW. And then for my max width, I'm going to set it to 1080 pixels, which is kind of the default for the Divi row anyway. So I'm just kind of keeping that consistent. So now you can see it's not going to get any larger, even though my viewport width will span larger. It's going to stop at 1080 pixels, but it's going to have a nice smooth transition on smaller browser widths. So that's kind of why I'm doing that there. I'm going to make my section alignment center. And do the same for my min height. I'm going to do 1080 pixels. Always remember to have the exact same or equal values for your width and height. So whatever you change on width, make sure you do the same for the height as well. All right, so 70 VW. And let's go ahead and do my tablet of 70 VW. And then my phone of 80 VW. Okay. All right, let's go back to my desktop view here. All right, so that's my first step of getting my height and width equal. Now the second step would be to get my rounded corners. So it's going to be 50%. And it's kind of a light background, but you can see it does now have that perfect circle shape to it. And then we'll need to align our content. So right now it's actually not too bad, but of course we'll need to shrink this up on, this is kind of like a large desktop view. So when I shrink it up, it's going to kind of hide the content. It's already hiding the title text here a little bit. So you need to make sure and give it the proper padding, and make sure and maybe give your heading a VW length unit so it responds nicely, and maybe shrink up our image over here as well so it fits nicely within our circular element. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, first I'm going to go to my this row, this text module here with my title. I'm just going to go over here and give it a, let's see, heading text size. And let's change that to a 4 VW. All right. And I'm going to save that out. And I'm going to come into this text module. I'm just going to take out some of this text. It is a good idea to kind of keep your your content to a minimum if you're wrapping it in a circle, so it all fits in there. So that's good. Let's give it some padding or margin. To do that, I'm going to add it to my row here. Let's open my row. And this current row, I think if I look at the spacing, it has a 100 pixel top padding, which came with the pre-made layout. I'm going to change that to 10 VW. All right. So that it's going to adjust nicely on the browsers. And then I'm going to change my padding, or give it a padding of 3 VW on each side. All right. Let's give my custom margin. Let's check out what it looks like. Ooh. Looks like my spacing of my, yeah, something happened here. Hold on. All right. So let's go back to my sizing. Let me check out, make sure it's the right settings here. All right, that's correct. That's correct. All right, good. Oh, I see what I did. I gave it a min height instead of a max height. So my apologies. It happens. So take that out, add my 1080 pixel max height. There we go. All right, so now we have our spacing and our heading text size. Let's give it a 3 VW. I think that looks better anyway. All right, and it's looking pretty good. The next thing I want to do to make it kind of look more circular, or recognize the circular shape a bit more, is I'm going to add actually a divider. And this is kind of a cool design you can add to your circular element if you're making a section a circular element, is to go ahead and add a divider style. And let's go ahead and use, can't find it, this one. All right. All right, and I want to match my green, my dark green there. I'm going to actually use a color picker. That's actually just an eyedropper tool I have on my Chrome browser there to match the color there. Just as an example, you can of course go in and look at the colors of the section. All right. Kind of make it lighter. Okay. And let's increase it to something like, I don't know, 42 VW. Oh wait, that would be the horizontal repeat. Sorry about that. My height of my divider, so 42 VW. All right, so there you can see it kind of makes it look more circular there. Maybe I decrease it a little bit. There you go. So that looks nice. And let's go ahead and check out what that looks like on our different browsers here. So on tablet, you can see that our image is kind of mostly hidden, and that's just kind of something we'll have to sacrifice. But of course, you could always use the transform options or the transform translate option, excuse me, to move that on tablet up into view. More so, and then on phone, of course, looks like we need more of a more width on our mobile. So to do that, I'm gonna go back to my section, go to my sizing, and on the phone, I'm gonna increase it to 90 VW. And let's do the same for the height. There you go. So now we can see it. All right, we'll need to add some padding in there, but you get the idea. This is how you would add it to a section. And it becomes more challenging on a section. Obviously, if you have a lot of content, you'll have to, make some minor adjustments to align your content and everything. So let's jump into the comments, see if I have any questions here. Yes. Okay. So, Chris, yeah, thanks for understanding my little slips there, my mistakes. Yes, we all do make mistakes. I know that. All right. So let's see. All right. Looking good. You guys don't have many questions, it looks like. So I'm going to keep rolling. Let's go ahead and jump in and make some blurbs circular. And let's go to our product section here. And as you can see, these are some blurb modules with the blurb icon left aligned. And this one's kind of highlighted. But let's go ahead and take one of these. And I'm going to apply our steps here of giving it a height and width that are equal. Border radius is 50%. And then align that content. So this one should be simple. All right, let's do it. Again, with this though, I'm going to use a max width and a max height as well in combination with my VW width and VW height. And it'll give it a smoother transition. All right, so desktop view, let's go back down. In fact, let me just go ahead and get rid of these other sections that I don't need. All right, let's go back to this one here. Let's open it up, bring my settings to this side. And let's go ahead and resize our the image width is regarding to this icon. It's for the icon or the image that you have set there. So I'm going to make that actually 7 VW. And I'm going to make our width, or actually going to put back my content width to the default. Doesn't really apply here. Make our width, actually going to give it a large 50 VW. And you can see that it's spanning like really far over. That's okay because I'm also going to give it a max width as well. I made it larger so that whenever we get to tablet and phone, it will look appropriate. Let's give it a larger one on phone though. So I'm gonna give it an 80 VW on phone. See, there it is. This is the one we're looking at. All right, so that's my width. Let's go ahead and go back to my desktop view and let's do the same for my height. Actually, but before I do that, let me set my max width to 400 pixels. As you can see, now it jumped back over to a more acceptable width for my layout. And 400 pixels is good because my row, I know, is about 1080 pixels wide, and the 2-column row there, 400 pixels for each one of my modules is going to fit nicely within that. And then make my module centered, and then give it a height of 50 VW on desktop and tablet. Excuse me. There we go. And then for phone, set it for 80. And then give it a max height equal to the 400 pixel width. And that should take care of my height. So there, it's got my perfect square there. Now we can do our border radius or rounded corners, 50%. All right. So I've got some stuff being hidden, like my image over here, so we need to make some alignment changes. First thing I need to do is make my image icon placement to top instead of left. And let's go ahead and line my text here to centered. That already looks a ton better, and we're almost where we need to be. Let's go ahead and add our padding. So right now we've got 30 pixels by 30 pixels on the top and bottom. I'm going to actually take that out. And then I'm going to add a 4 VW left and right padding. And one more thing, I'm going to go ahead and go over to my advanced tab and add my custom CSS of display flex so I can make sure that it is centered vertically. All right, let's go ahead and check out what that looks like on this one. Okay. All right, let's shrink down our browser a bit. All right, it's looking good. There's my tablet view and phone. Okay, so we're good on that. Now, all we have left to do is just copy this over. So I'm just going to right click and let's go ahead and extend my blurb styles to this section and then extend it. And there you go. All my blurbs are now circular. And this one over here is using a white image here. So you'll need to replace that. But there you go. That's basically our final design. And hopefully you've learned some things on how to make circular elements in Divi. Just real quick, just checking to see if we have any questions. Look like we don't. All right. All right, thanks again, you guys. Gonna wrap this up. All right, that's all I got for this week. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and please be sure to subscribe to our blog newsletter, our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook so you don't miss out on any future live streams we have or any freebies or anything else we'll be throwing your way. Don't forget to check out our next live stream, which is tomorrow. Excuse me, not tomorrow, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be back here on next Tuesday for another Divi use case live stream. And also, if you want to share your own knowledge expertise with the Elegant Themes community or on our Elegant Themes blog, you can check out the video description for more information on how you can contribute your own unique content to our blog. So thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in our next video.